A big story on a CIA conviction that we want to get his take on.
So on Wednesday, a former CIA engineer was convicted on 9 counts of a case that accused him of stealing classified government information. The classified information was called Vault 7, and I want to discuss it for a few reasons. One, the case is strange because it sort of shoots some holes in how airtight the CIA can be and how dependent they
Yeah.
are on
La-
basically human behavior,
Larry's laughing about
right?
the airtightness of it. We'll get to that in a second.
But also, there's this idea that Vault 7 exists, that the United States government has the tools to reach as far as it wants into your digital life. So, let me introduce you to the case a little bit, and then we'll get your take on it. So, the person who was convicted is named Joshua Schultz. He worked inside the Operations Support Branch, or OSB unit at the CIA. His nickname there was Badass and Voldemort because he had a shaved head like the Harry Potter villain. Now, most of the engineers had nicknames, though, inside his unit, so that's not in and of itself quite so incriminating. One guy who got braces as an adult was called Train Tracks. The OSB is a physical hacking unit, though. It's when someone wants to hack into your life and they send out, say, a plumber to your house, right? Who then puts something on your hard drive while you're going to the bathroom or something like that, right? It's that type of thing. They will always deny that they do it, that their sort of modus operandi is plausible deniability. Well, until Vault 7 was published on WikiLeaks. So, what is Vault 7? According to Nicole Perlroth's book, it is like an instruction manual for how the CIA can hack into cars, smart TVs, web browsers, the operating systems of Android, Apple, and Windows, Mac, and Linux, basically the motherload. It's like, oh, we want to get into you. That guy has this is how we do it, right? Vault 7 was published on WikiLeaks on March 7th of 2017, but the CIA didn't know it actually that it had been published for a year until WikiLeaks, or it had been hacked, but they didn't know it until WikiLeaks published it, which is interesting. Now, this is in the wake of many leaks from a group called Shadow Brokers. And so initially the CIA thought this was the work of shadow brokers, but shadow brokers didn't take the credit. So Vault 7 not only showed the public what the CIA was doing, it showed them the targets. And so, say one target could figure out what the CIA had on their phone, right? The thing is, this was not on a public network, and it was only hosted inside the CIA's network. So the CIA believed that this was an inside job. Now, by the time they figured this out, this guy Schultz was already working for Bloomberg in New York City in the private sector. He had had a very long and drawn out personnel battle with someone inside the CIA where, like, he was shooting him with Nerf guns. The guy didn't like it. He said threatening things. It seems very juvenile, but it went all the way to the fact that Schultz filed a restraining order with the courts against this person. And this was not supposed to happen. In the CIA, things are supposed to just stay inside the CIA. You should not take this public. Am I right, Larry? Do you want to bring in on that before we keep going, that like
Well,
this guy doing this, going into the court system against his CIA coworker was already strange?
Schultz, I think, illustrates, if I'm not mistaken, he was a contractor. He was not a full-time blue badge. They call them blue badgers. Blue badgers are people who are actually full-time CIA employees and are part of the CIA organization and will retire with a CIA pension if they somehow manage to stick around for 20 years. What has happened, particularly since 9/11, is a lot of the intelligence activities were contracted out to subcontractors, uh, just like Edward Snowden. Snowden worked for the agency for a while, and then Snowden was actually working as a contractor. But as a contractor, you will hold top secret compartmented clearances and what they call SAP clearances, special access programs. So those are even beyond top secret. It's inclusive. So what Schultz was working on was clearly a SAP, and the SAPs are controlled from the standpoint you have to sign in, be read into them, sign it, and then when they end the SAP, sometimes you have to sign out. Uh, the fact that he got away with carrying this out, and he tried to portray himself as a whistleblower. Uh, I don't think he was a whistleblower. He was vindictive. He was very self-centered. The allegation that he also had child pornography on his computer. I don't know if the FBI planted that. I wouldn't put it beyond the FBI to do that, or if it was legitimate on his part.
Well, let me just
Regardless,
ring in on that
he's got
part
bigger problems
because
on that. Yeah.
yes, so that is actually what they picked him up for, right? So they went and searched his computers, and they raided his home, and they found a server. Basically, he had been hosting a server inside of his computer, but he was kind of dumb enough to keep the passwords on his phone, which they also had. So they were able to get into that server, and they found child pornography. And he says he was hosting it on a public server for like his high school buddies, right? But then separately,
Jeez.
they also found a photograph of a woman in a bathroom at the CIA who was his roommate. And she appears to be unconscious. And in the photograph, he's touching her inappropriately. And this is how he was also charged with sexual assault. And the woman says, I don't remember taking this. Clearly, this was not consensual. So these two pieces, whether or not, I mean, it doesn't seem very plausible that the government could plant at least the second one, right? Are something
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
government has said that it will put on the back burner while it tries the Vault7 case. And he still does have to try those sexual assault and pornography cases. He says if the CIA goes ahead with this, though, he's going to expose the CIA for all kinds of nefarious things, right? So, but so yes, the pieces about sort of the unsavoriness of his character exist. He is not. He had posted on Twitter that he is anti-Snowden, anti-Chelsea Manning. He thought both of those people should be severely punished. He's not an idealist like this. So, but is he somebody who? But he knew that Vault7 would embarrass the government. So one of my questions is, why
Right.
hasn't it really caused the outrage that the Snowden documents did?
Well, because do you remember that, we talked about a little earlier without naming it, Stuxnet. So the
Yes.
Stuxnet virus was produced initially by the United States. It was unleashed on Iran by the Israelis without, giving the United States an advance warning. And then it got out of control and actually went around the world and shut down a lot of businesses and such. So the idea, all Vault7 proved was what was already established, which is the United States has got major software for hacking foreign computers and doing it in a variety of ways. So that was not as um, stunning as Snowden provided, which was that, in fact, the U.S. government is actively spying on Americans and invading your privacy across the board. Uh, what is interesting is that WikiLeaks did not publish the full, they kept some control over what was released. They showed the general categories of what the CIA was doing with these hacker tools, but they didn't actually release the code so it could be used. So they showed some journalistic responsibility in that case. But this guy Schultz, let's call him an accidental whistleblower.
Hmm.
I don't know if he sent the stuff initially to WikiLeaks for a vendetta or to get paid,
But there was
or
never any communication between him and WikiLeaks. It does, but WikiLeaks actually had a backup that he had done. So it's like the
right.
the forensics of it is still a little bit strange. But then also the fact that the CIA knew that this guy was volatile, that he was, having this strange vendetta against a coworker. I guess I'm asking, how common is that there's just like personnel issues that blow up and then actually have national security implications?
Oh, not only is it very common, I think it's probably worse now than it's ever been in the history of the CIA. I mean, go back to Robert Ames, who was discovered in around 1990, 92.
Right.
He was spying for the then Soviet Union, and had given quite a bit of damning information. Uh, he had all the warning signs back then in terms of uh, having too much money for his income level, extravagant lifestyle, living, wearing the suits, a variety of things. Eh, Nobody picked up on it until after the damage was already done. Now, what you've created in CIA is they're so focused upon having, the right pronouns and the multiple mixes of genders and different shades of hair color that little attention's paid to actual whether lifestyle creates some vulnerabilities that could be exploited by foreign intelligence services. I guarantee you right now, if whether I'm, Russian, Israeli, French, British, God, I couldn't wait to work against U.S. intelligence targets because they're going to be so much easier to recruit now than it was the case during the Cold War.
Yeah.
Our guest is Larry Johnson, ex-CIA analyst. Any final questions on this story? I mean, I think the CIA, the Mike Pompeo angle of the Vault7 thing is really interesting, right? I mean, this is exactly what
Yes.
what Julian Assange's wife has said, that Mike Pompeo, who was then CIA director at the time of the leak, instructed the CIA to assassinate Julian Assange in response to the Vault7 story. Can you speak to that at all, Larry?
I don't know if he actually issued that because it violates the executive orders 12333, is it? 12345. There are two executive orders that were issued back in the days of Ronald Reagan, specifically banning assassinations. But the anger at Julian Assange is so misplaced. Julian Assange is he may be a jerk in the views of some people, but he's done legitimate journalism. And the reason the United States is so angry at him is he's exposed a lot of very ugly things that the United States has done.
Yes.
And it's just a little inconvenient truth. That's the real inconvenient truth here, is that the lies that were sold to the American people about why we went to war in Iraq, why we went to war in Afghanistan, or expanded the war in Afghanistan, didn't take care of bin Laden, whole variety of things. Julian Assange has exposed that. And Assange, as well, some of the WikiLeaks material exposes the fact that Russia had been communicating with the United States for quite a while about how it would react if the West persisted in trying to bring Ukraine into NATO.
Our guest is Larry Johnson, ex-CIA analyst. You can find him over at sonar21.com, where he does great writing there on currently what's happening in Ukraine and around the world, geopolitics, as well as intelligence. So great to have Larry here on the show.
Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. We've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.